On the dais for Baylor, we have head coach Kim Mulkey. Just a reminder, all the student athletes are in the breakout rooms, which are down the hall. We'll start with questions for Coach right away. Right here, Doug, right here in front.
Excuse me. Is it?
Right here.
Kim, Doug Fomberg, the AP. You were here in this position 7 years ago, going for a 40-0 season, obviously won a title then. How have you changed in the last 7 years as a coach from then till now, if you have?
Some things will never change. I think holding kids accountable will never change. Your disciplining of kids so that you have control of your locker room. I think you change and you evolve as a coach based upon the student athletes that you have, what motivates them, how to reach them. I have a locker room full of unbelievable competitors, but it's a totally different personality than the 2012 team. So it's my job to figure it out and adjust to them when it comes to motivation and how to get the most out of them and decide what their roles are.
Question down here.
Troy Hine, KWTX. Coach, how hard is it to prepare for a team like Notre Dame after just the one day as you guys get ready for tomorrow night?
Well, you kind of plan ahead. I tell you guys back home all the time, it wasn't raining when Noah built his ark. So as the bracket came out, you kind of assign coaches to different teams, but you focus on the next opponent. So we had already done our work on Oregon and our work on potentially who you could see, UConn, people down the road. And then when you get to that time to present it, you've already done the work as a staff. So all that's left to do is sit and watch who you play, but you don't present anything until you know for certain who you're going to play. So we're running a little bit late this morning because we're 20-something minutes away and we get in traffic, but we also have to we got to present Notre Dame to our team this morning. And so I hope that's answered your question. It's you're trying to do all the requirements that you have to do, but you also have to get their attention and stay on track to what your normalcy is. So, they watch the game. I'm sure they've watched some Notre Dame games through the season. They know how good they are. They know they're the defending champs. They know basically they play 5 kids that won't be back next year other than potentially Jackie Young. So they have experience in the game. Does that help a little bit? All right.
Question here from Michelle.
Michelle Smith, NCAA.com. Kim, can you just talk about the evolution of Kalani a little bit from the player you got when she first got here and the player she is today?
Well, there is no change in Kalani Brown's personality and who she is as a person. Just the kindest, sweetest kid, happy kid. Basketball-wise, I thought when we got her, she played like that. I thought that she just really kind of wanted to blend in instead of really using her size to be dominant. And if it was just asking for the ball, it's okay to raise your voice and holler, give me the ball, ball. Sometimes that doesn't come natural for kids. But Kalani, as you saw last night, went to the offensive board. She had a presence in that paint. And there's nothing that's just gotten just phenomenally better other than the maturation process. She's always been able to shoot the perimeter shot. We just don't have to use it in our style of play with her and Cox. She's got a beautiful shot. Maybe her mobility, as people want to call it, her ability to guard people off the dribble, she works on that from the high post. Has not had to go to the 3 much to do that since her freshman year. Plays for longer periods of time where she doesn't need rest. But her fundamentals of the game were there, and I attribute that to her mother. Her mother was an assistant coach on her high school team. Her mother coached her during the summers. You know, Kalani is just Kalani. She's just a happy-go-lucky kid and very pleasant.
Question over here in the back.
Hey, Coach. Blake Dodonis, High Post Hoops. With Dee Richards defensively, I know you talked about it last night, but offensively, especially as of late, she's been pretty special. Her development in that area, could you speak on that a little bit?
Well, I think Dee Dee has figured out that she's not going to be a liability on the offensive end when people don't guard her, so she cuts to the basket. She finds open areas to do good things. If it's an offensive board, cutting to the basket when our post players, who are tremendous passers, can find her. And she's very confident. She took a critical shot there late in the game, and she didn't hesitate to do that. Now, that comes from her being confident. That may not be, if I was drawing up a play, the option for her to be the first one to shoot that. But, hey, she's gotten us to this point, and it wasn't a bad shot. It was a very makeable shot for her.
Question in the back.
David Smoke, ESPN Central Texas. After the game ended, their team is celebrating. You're crouched down courtside and stayed there for a long time. What were you thinking?
Hell, I'm too old to get up. No. I just looked at them and thought, this is why you coach. I think I've done that before, just taking the moment. And those kids had never been to a Final Four. They were going to now play for a national championship, and I just wanted to just watch them. And then I think one of my assistants came behind and said, Coach, get up. I just wanted to take it all in, and I just happened to be squatted at the end of the game because that's how the position I was in. Just taking in the moment.
Question right here in front.
Ava Wallace, Washington Post. Coach, you mentioned how different this team is from your Final Four team, but was there something from that Final Four run that informed this one, either something you wanted to make sure you did this time or you didn't do, or anything that kind of affected how you're managing the team this time around?
No, not at all. You don't compare teams, and just do what we've been doing for ever how many games we've been doing it this year, and don't change who we are. I don't have a team in that locker room that gets too high or too low. They certainly don't stress over anything. They have fun, and the fun part for me is just allowing them to be who they are, and think that I only lose 2 of them. I've got a whole boatload of them back that are very talented, and those kids are experiencing something that they won't ever forget, and hopefully the younger ones will take it with them when the season starts, or we start next year.
Question right down here.
Chad Conan, Waco Tribune Herald. Kim, Gino said last night that Notre Dame could get a basket anytime they wanted to, and compared them on the offensive end to some of his best teams. What do you see that would make him say those things?
Well, they're defending national champions. They all average pretty much in double figures, except for probably in the playoffs. I think they have 4 or 5 that are averaging in double figures. They have bigs inside. They shoot the 3 ball, not like an Oregon, but they will shoot the 3 ball. They're athletic. I guess just the fact that they can score at all positions. And maybe Gino's trying to say he doesn't have that at all positions. I don't know. I can't, respond to why he said that. I know he went to Notre Dame and beat them this year, so his team is pretty darn good. He needs to give them a little credit.
Question here, Michelle.
Michelle Vogel, ESPN.com. Coach, Muffet has talked a lot about the need for even more female role models and how important that is, and you probably saw a lot of her remarks. I'm just wondering if you could address that, because with the 2 of you, going for a national championship, I feel like you 2 are the spokeswomen for women's basketball. And what do you think about being in that role?
Muffet's coached a lot longer than I have. She's a Naismith Hall of Famer. What I think really doesn't matter. I will tell you this, I understand her points, without a doubt. But I'm of the belief I want the best person for the job. I have a son, and I would be honored if my son wanted to coach next to me. She has a son, and I think she would be honored if he wanted to coach women's basketball. So I tend to stay away from saying the word never. Bring attention to what needs to be fixed, but don't give an absolute answer, because I don't want to hire somebody just to be hiring them. I want to hire somebody that can help us be successful. And as a female and a mother of a son and a daughter, I'm very careful on, saying never. But I do understand what she is saying. Statistics are glaring, and she has a right and an opinion to say whatever she wants to say, but I'm just very careful about that, mainly because I have a son.
Question down here in the front.
Jerry Hill, Baylor Bear Insider. Kim, when you say let the players be who they are, has that always been the case, or is that something you've evolved where you let them be more who they are? Because it seems like when I think of some of the players back in the past that you had to deal with, kind of knuckleheads.
Well, it's not that those in the past weren't who they are. It's just they were a little bit more reserved. They didn't have the DD silly goofiness at a press conference, and they were just more reserved. But you got to let players be who they are when it comes to team chemistry and how they motivate each other and pull for each other. That's all I meant by that.
Question right here in the aisle.
Bob Hutton with the Tampa Bay Times. You've had quite a bit of success signing post players with considerable height. In recruiting, how much is that a factor? Is height, looking for post players, is that the factor?
Well, we try to find the best players. We've just been blessed that in our recruiting that we have had some of the greats of the game. And I just think you have to, as a coach, run a system that showcases their talents. If I don't have post players, I can't run some of the stuff that I do. But I've been very fortunate that when a group graduates, we've got younger ones that are big coming into the program. Do we go in and say, gosh, get me the big? That would be great, but, recruiting is difficult. We try to get the best that we can at all positions, and then whoever we sign, then we evaluate what we need to run and what we need to do.
Question in the back row.
Nick Anazales, KCN. Coach, Lauren and Kalani a couple weeks ago spoke about how fresh they feel, basically sitting out the fourth quarter majority of the season. Both of them played high minutes, with Lauren playing all 40 minutes, Kalani playing 35. Did you see those fresh legs last night?
Yes. When you have depth, you can play a lot of players. Not only are you resting them for the playoffs, but you're also letting those young ones gain experience. And I just thought we had a team, and I was allowed to do that a lot this year. And it's funny, Nick, because in one of the playoff games, I want to say it might have been Iowa, somebody questioned, you played them 30, or was it the semifinal? I can't remember. Would they be ready for the next game? And I'm like, this is why we rested them all year for 6 games, so that they would be able to play those amount of minutes. Those kids, they'll do whatever you ask. If they need to play 40, they'll play 40. If they need to play 20, they'll play 20. It's playoff time, and I didn't think any of the players that played were fatigued at all.
Question here in the aisle.
Hi, Kim, Paul Meyerberg with USA Today. You touched on this briefly last night. You mentioned the gap in three-point shooting in the game last night. I'm just curious, And you did mention that you like to tailor your offense to your personnel. When it comes to having more of a post game as your philosophy, are you simply more comfortable with that as a coach than a game perhaps more predicated by deep shooting?
Again, I'm going to go with what I need to do based upon what my kids are capable of doing. You have to remember, we lost 2 perimeter three-point shooters when the season started. Starting point guard and starting 2 player. One transferred, one was dismissed. Those kids could stroke it out there. I still say the offense that we run with our 2 bigs, our leading scorer should be a three-point shooter or a perimeter shooter because of the amount of attention that they receive. I've always thought that. Am I more comfortable with that? I'm comfortable with whatever I need to do. You never become stagnant as a coach that you go out and say, okay, this is the style I run and these are the kinds of players I need to recruit. That would not be very smart on my part. Go recruit the best players at every position, and if they're big, great. And then get them there and then see what you need to run and run it. Does that help a little bit?
Question here for Doug.
Kim, I have a 2-part question. First one is, how nice has it been for you to celebrate this run with your family, with your daughter being your staff, and obviously your grandson being around all the time and stealing press conferences, it seems. And the second part is, you, after 2012, had a chance to repeat in 2013. Just talk about how difficult it is to win back-to-back titles. Not many teams have done it, and obviously Notre Dame is now one victory away from accomplishing that feat.
Well, let me put it in perspective. How many national championships has Muffet won? How many have I won? How long has she been coaching? How many years? I don't know. Probably a heck of a lot longer than me. Does that tell you how hard it is? It's hard, Doug. It is so hard to win championships. You can be the favorite and not win them. I've been the favorite and not won them. I've been the underdog and won them. There are no guarantees in this business. And that's why you cherish the moment. To answer your question about my family, I don't think it's any secret that we had just a horrible year with the death of a grandchild. And yet, I don't think as a family, and I'm talking about Mackenzie and myself, we had time to grieve. You're right in the middle of the season. We're opening up at UCLA. So our grief was put into our work. And then she gets pregnant and has a, cannon, and you bet I'm going to hang on to him. Holding a child up here is a heck of a lot more touching than holding one right here that's deceased. And I've done both in the last year and a half. So every chance I get, you bet. Because in my world, anybody will tell you, it is about family first. When I was hired, I told the president at Baylor, if a decision has to be made about my job and my family, that decision was made a long time ago. I live by that. And I think my players know it, they see it, they feel it. And, I just, they come first. And it should be in all of our lives. It doesn't just take the death of a child to get your attention, but sometimes it really does. And so you're going to see him. The only thing I hate is Kramer's not here. St. Louis Cardinal fan behind you. He had another single in the game last night. Great story. Can I talk about him a little bit? So I get to the room and he goes, "Why won't you answer my calls?" He's playing during our game. He's in the on-deck circle and he has the trainer. He says, "Get on the app." And it was a tie ball game, whatever, late in the game. And he said, "Still don't have a score." They go to timeout and whatever. And he said, "Mom, I go to the field and the whole team now is like, they know the signal." And he says, I'm at shortstop and I'm looking in the dugout. And he said, "Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down." And he said, I'm freaking out there. I can't focus, you know. He said, I have a line drive hit at me. I feel it, and I get it. And he said, I see a thumbs up. He said, all the guys on the team are just like going nuts. You'd have thought we won the national championship. He said, because we were all trying to do our job, but we have an interest there. And I said, well, Kramer, it was that kind of game. Nobody could give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. So he was excited, and I miss him being here. But, Doug, you guys know family comes first with me. That's all we have, or really at our lowest moments are our family. And I want to say this. How many AP writers in here? Okay, guys, I failed at the AP awards thing to acknowledge you guys. That's a humbling thing to win that award. Should have been the first people I thanked. So I'm thanking you publicly. I'll put it out on Twitter. Y'all know that I only win those awards because of the kids. But, you know, I'm glad you brought that to my attention, Big Guy. You've been around the game. Mel, Michelle, Hawkins. Listen, y'all been doing this a long time. Y'all been doing it longer than I've been coaching. And y'all are much appreciated.
Question in the back there.
Matt Roberts, Fox 44. You talked a little bit about just enjoying the moment and the quick turnaround. With the quick turnaround, how do you kind of walk that line of you and your team smelling the roses, but also knowing there's work to do?
Well, we can't go out here and run up and down the floor. I don't think anybody can. You walk through, you watch film, you know what you're going to do. You just tell them this is what we're going to do defensively, okay? They know what we're going to do offensively. You got to get the soreness out. You got to get baths. You got to get all the things you can to let their bodies recover. We've got requirements with media and ESPN and NCAA. We've got an autograph session. We're going to do those gladly, but with a little fatigue. But make sure that, you know, you get rest. You get rest, too. And it's a fine line, but we'll figure it out. Notre Dame, and we're both in the same boat.
Question over here.
Coach Rodney Page from the Tampa Bay Times. During this run, how much is the team thinking about Shamika Scott?
Thinking about who? Shamika?
Shamika, yeah.
We haven't talked about it a whole lot. We haven't talked about losing Scout, my granddaughter. Those really are not things that we talk about right now. I think everyone is so excited, but yet they have a business-like approach too. I'll tell you this, one of the things I've been doing it 35 years if you count my 15 years at Louisiana Tech as a coach. I'm excited that every one of my players' parents are in the stands. That might be a first. And you know why that is? Because the NCAA got it right. They allow you to help those parents get here. And I'm just telling you, they're all congregated right there in that one little section in the stands. And when I turned to thank our crowd, I stared at every one of them because, you know, they all want to see their kid play. And they don't always leave a gym happy at a coach. We understand that. But I wanted to look at them and say thank you to the parents because you and your child are the reason we're here. You believed in me, you believed in Baylor, and whether they played 1 second or not, they wouldn't be on that floor without their parents, and that's a good thing.
Question here from Michelle.
Coach, both, men's, women's basketball, football, everything, coaches become iconic to their schools, both with longevity and success. I know you haven't been doing as long as Muffet, but you are that person at Baylor.
Would
Muffet.
you tell Baylor that?
I'll tell him right now.
Would you write
yes.
that in your story, that Baylor, you better cherish that program? Because that will get me a raise, Michelle. That might get me a Calipari contract. That might get me a name on the floor or street, something. So speak it, Michelle. Tell them. Why don't you come be my AD and my president and my... No, go ahead.
I'm not qualified for that.
All right.
But to that end, there is a Pat Summitt court. There is a statue of her outside of Tennessee. She was that person. And again, you and Muffet are that person to your programs. I wonder if you can talk about that, because that does mean something, I think, to have a coach be iconic to their program.
I don't know how to answer that. It's kind of difficult to talk about what you think Baylor should do for you. I just want them to be proud of the program. I want them to say that woman does her job. They pay me extremely well. Money has never been an issue with me. I don't know how to answer that. I think that's left up to Baylor. I think that's left up to the new administration. I think it goes without saying the new administration has probably not been in this room for the last 19 years because they were at other schools and other places, and so maybe those that have been with the school the longest can really understand what you're saying. It's just that's a Baylor deal. I don't coach to get into Hall of Fames. I don't coach to get courts named after me. I don't coach. I coach to get a paycheck, I can tell you that, because we all want to retire someday. I'm very loyal. Maybe that's the word I will tell you. I really think I'm loyal to a fault. I get into it with some of you when you're bashing Baylor on other issues, don't I? Well, who's always the one that speaks up? It's usually Kim. It's usually me. When Baylor's at its lowest moment, it's usually me that defends the university. And I defend it not out of my loyalties as much as how I truly feel. And that's all I know to do is to coach, to be loyal, speak highly of my institution, and all that other stuff, Michelle, that's out of my hands. That is above my pay scale. That is above my level. I think all coaches want a pat on the back. That's all it takes. Every now and then is just a pat on the back that, hey, we see you. And all that other stuff, I'll let y'all write about it. But I could deal with a Calipari contract, couldn't y'all? Huh? I probably wouldn't turn that down.
Sorry. One last question up here in the front.
Kim, it's kind of your team MO anyway, but how big is rebounding in this matchup? I look at their numbers from last night. They had 22 offensive boards, out-rebounded UConn by like 17.
We looked at that too. If you go back to last night's game, I thought two areas we were not very good at early. Turning the ball over, just uncharacteristic turnovers for us in transition when there was no need to. And then offensive boards. They were getting more offensive boards and second chance opportunities than we were. When you play Notre Dame, Shepard and Turner are capable of doing that. And so it's going to be a battle, but it's certainly brought to our attention.